We're coming to you live from our studios in Koko Mlemle. Welcome to the most authoritative hour on TV. It's The Pulse. We're live on your digital terrestrial TV because we're free to air on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. Remember, we're your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. This afternoon, firm assurances from the Special Prosecutor, Kisia Jabeng, to suppress and repress corruption as he formally takes office. We have details of the swearing-in ceremony at the presidency earlier today, where the president gave the green light for Kisia Jabeng to begin his 7-year mandate. Also this afternoon, an Accra High Court grants former Minister for Works and Housing Collins Dauda self-recognizance bill and also ask for a deposit of his passport. Mr. Collins Dauda and 4 others have meanwhile pleaded not guilty to charges including causing financial loss to the state in the Staglemy housing project. We have all the analysis with our court correspondent, plus revelations from a former housing minister on that project. And MPP touts itself as a champion of social intervention programs in the country as it celebrates 29 years of existence as a political party. On The Pulse this afternoon, we're having a reflection on the party's performance over the years and also have a conversation about its social intervention policies over the period. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities, Dignilu, Affordable, Safe Sanitation. Remember, we're also streaming live on YouTube and all our social media handles. Tweet at us at the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is @Denana Aisha. I'm always excited to host you. And many thanks for choosing us. Former Minister for Works and Housing Collins Dauda and 4 others have pleaded not guilty to charges including causing financial loss to the state in the Staglemy housing project. Mr. Dauda has been charged with misapplying public funds and also causing financial loss to the state. An Accra High Court granted self-recognizance bail to Mr. Dauda, the first accused person, and asked him to deposit his Kenyan passport with the court registrar. Mr. Dauda and 4 others have been charged with a total of 52 counts. My colleague Kwesi Parker Wilson has been monitoring proceedings in court. He joins me in studio now. Parker Wilson, good to see you. Who are the other 4 people who have been charged alongside Collins Dauda? Okay, so Aisha, we know that the successor of Mr. Collins Dauda, that is Kweku Ajiman Mensah, was also charged. There's Ziblin Yakubu. He was the former chief director of the Ministry of Works and Housing. He has also been charged. And the executive chairman of Constructura OS and OAS, Coniclas, has also been charged. And finally, one Mr. Angelo has also been charged. Now, this morning at the court, the judge, Justice Comfort Tasma, well, I'm not getting the name right, but then the judge used almost about an hour to read the 52 charges against the 5 accused persons. Now, when she calls you, then she will talk about your charge. Then you respond whether you are guilty or not guilty. And all the 5 persons, but all the 52, indicated that they are not guilty for the 52 charges.
The 52 charges.
Wow.
And so shortly after that, the Attorney General, who was in court himself, read the fact of the matter and indicated to the court that out of the 5, it is only Mr. Collins Dauda who is a member of Parliament. He holds a constitutional office. Okay. And so he must be given some preferential treatment. So he suggested to the court that since he's a member of Parliament, they should give him a self-recognizance bail, so that at least he could continue with whatever he's doing and make himself available for the court proceedings. However, that did not come without a condition. Then he added that the court should compel Mr. Dauda to deposit his passport. Now, this is the reason he assigned to it, that for the effective facilitation and the swift movement of the court proceedings, it will be very important for the court to limit the travels of Mr. Dauda. But then the lawyer for Mr. Collins Dauda, that is Tadio Sorry, had some objection. He said he did not oppose to the self-recognizance bill, but rather the issue about the passport.
Okay.
And he says that Mr. Dauda is actually a member of the Pan-African Parliament. And so if he's a member of the Pan-African Parliament, from time to time, he would be required to travel outside the country to discharge his duties. So if you seize his passport, obviously...
That will make it difficult
Exactly, that will make it difficult for him. But the AG insisted that Mr. Dauda should deposit the passport because if he is not controlled, he might delay the court process. So at the end of the day, the court agreed to the position of the Attorney General, and then she granted the Mr. Dauda the request about the self-recognizance bill, and also asking him to go and deposit the passport to the court registrar. Was
Mr. Collins Dauda himself in court, or what was his demeanor?
Yeah, he was in court. He was wearing what you call a kaftan, the white one. Looked very calm. He came in the company of the minority leader himself, Haruna Idrisu. The chief whip was also in court today, Muntaka Mubarak. We have a spokesperson, that is Eric Opoku, was also there. Your very good friend, Dr. Ayeni, was also there to support him, including some party executives like Asabi Jemfi and Joshua Kamba. But the other four, Aisha, let me just run you through the charges that the court, the bill conditioned by the court. Now, even before the judge came out with the bill conditions, the Attorney General pleaded with the court that the bill condition should commensurate the charges leveled against the four accused persons. So after listening to him, the judge then said that, well, the second accused person, that is in the person of Kweku Ajiman Mensah, was granted bail in the sum of $65 million with two sureties. He is also required to deposit his Ghanaian passport to the registrar. The third accused person, as I mentioned, is Ziblin Yakubu. He is the former chief director of the ministry under the John Mahama administration. He was granted bail also in the sum of $65 million with three sureties. And then the Andrew Klokanas, the executive chairman of Construra OS. So this is the company responsible for the construction of the housing project. The man was granted bail in the sum of $179 million, and with some three sureties as well. And then finally, Novi Tete Angelo was also granted bail in the sum of $13 million with two sureties. So these are the bail conditions. In fact, just before we came on air, we were told that Mr. Dauda has complied with the bail condition, and the others are also currently going through the process. Lawyers for the second and the third accused in court had raised concerns about the CID's bail condition. They were actually suggesting to the court that since the CID bailed them, because a year ago, they were being investigated by the CID. And so there was a bail condition for them. So they wanted the court to use the bail condition by the CID to effect this particular bail condition. But that was dismissed by the court. So today, as we know, the five accused persons have been granted bail, but however, with huge sums of bail condition, which many are saying that they might not be able to even meet it. But however, we are monitoring the situation to see how it goes.
And after the proceedings, you spoke with the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu. How does he feel about this decision of the court?
Aisha, he's very disappointed. He feels government appointees under the Mahama administration are being persecuted. And as a matter of fact, at the time the court is on legal vacation, they are leveling charges against Collins Dauda. And he was questioning why the hurry, why the desperation. And he alleged that somewhere in 2018, May 2018, the government under the leadership of Samuel Atachia as Minister of Works and Housing made some payment to the contractor, and yet no individual under this administration is being prosecuted. However, persons who did no wrong in the execution of these Segleme housing projects are the ones being prosecuted. So he believes it is frivolous, aimed at victimizing and intimidating members of the government appointee, and for him, they will not be intimidated. They remain undoubted that at the end of the day, Collins Dauda will emerge victor of this particular case. So he is confident that the case and the charges against Collins Dauda will not stand the test of law. And at the end of the day, he will be vindicated. So he's only saying that the NDC members should be assured that indeed Mr. Dauda did no wrong, and as a matter of fact, nothing is going to happen to him.
And Mr. Odame himself, who's been arguing that Collins Dauda should submit his passport, he's been responding to the minority leader. What has he been saying?
So, Aisha, you know that there's a general rule within your profession that if you're a lawyer in a case, you are not allowed to grant interviews to the media.
Yeah.
So when the Attorney General stepped out from the courtroom, we had wanted to get some reaction from him. All he said was that this particular case is a landmark case. He wants to make the point that if you are a public office holder, you should be accountable to the people. And it's the reason he has taken this case to the court. We can listen to him.
So, Honorable, officially the accused persons, have been charged formally. What is your case against them, sir?
I think the case for the Republic is as read out in court and contained also the statement of charge that were disclosed by me in court today. I'll just not speak any further, just to say that I'll tell you what the case is about. The case is about holding public officers to account. It's about ensuring that there will be a proper and efficient use of state resources. That indeed, if you're a public officer and you're entrusted with any brief, any funds or resources allocated to you, must be used in accordance with the purpose for which the funds were allocated. And simple as that. So the case is about ensuring that there will be the adherence to due process, and ensuring that persons trusted with public office and public power exercise responsibility for their actions. That's what the case is about. Thank you very much.
So that was Godfrey Dame, the Attorney General. But what has brought us all here? What's the background to this whole case?
Asha, you called that I did a report somewhere in April talking about the Saglame housing project. Now, there's a contention that the project is completed and it's habitable. That's the position of the NDC. Okay. But the NPP on the other side argue that it is not habitable. It's inhabitable, actually. Okay. And so the current minister responsible for works and housing, Francis Asensu-Boakye, just a few months ago held a press conference and indicated to Ghanaians that we need additional $32 million for the completion of 1,500 housing units currently stationed at Saglame. Okay. Now, the 1,500 units itself is the problem, because E.T. Mensah, during the era of John Mahama, somewhere in 2013, went to Parliament to procure a loan facility of $200 million for the construction of 5,000 housing units. Right. Now, according to the NDC, now there's a little back and forth with E.T. Mensah and the position of the party, including Collins Dauda and others, that E.T. Mensah, in the works agreement, indicated that the project will be built in phases, actually 4 phases, and that government was supposed to procure land, construct roads, drainage systems, sewage system as part of the project. Part of the project. That is for the 200 million. So the 200 million, the issue about the construction of roads and sewage system were not factored into the 200 million. Okay. That's the argument from the NDC. That's the argument from the NDC, and particularly from E.T. Mensah. Okay. The 200 million itself were just about the construction of the 5,000 housing units without the construction of roads, sewage system, and drainage system. But the NDC party, including Eric Opoku, who speaks for Collins Dauda, have argued that the agreement was that government was going to make provision for land and also put together the drainage and sewage system. But at the time they procured the money, that is the $200 million, government did not have funds to do that which he had proposed to do, which is the construction of the sewage and the road. So then they resolved, at the time, the minister was E.T. Mensah, to take part of the 200 million to construct the roads and the drainage system and all of that. Now, they had entered an agreement with Ghana Home Loans. And so They're going to build 1,500 as the first phase, hand over the project to Ghana Home Loans, and then the agency will now sell the building or the facility to you and I.
Okay.
So after we procure them, the proceeds from the sale of the 1,500 will be used for the construction of the second phase,
Okay.
which is another 1,500.
Okay.
But that did not happen. As we speak, the NPP tells us that the $200 million has been expended, and yet we do not have a complete 1,500 housing units, which should be habitable for you and I to go and occupy.
And of course, today the former Works and Housing Minister has been denying the fact that the works and the project was supposed to be in phases. He says it's untruth that that happened in that contract. We can listen to him. All right, so E.T. Mensah himself will try and get that sound bite, but he's been saying that it's not true that in that contract they agreed to do it in phases.
Yes.
And again, the 200 million was supposed to be for the entire 5,000 units, correct?
That's correct. And he was responding directly to a statement issued by the National Communication Officer of the opposition NDs, that is Sami Jenfi, who came out to outline the work agreement and made the point that the 200 million was just procurement of the loan from Parliament, but the works agreement, that is the construction of the project itself, did not need a parliamentary approval.
Okay.
Is the reason when Collins Dauda took over from E.T. Mensah, he restricted the works agreement from 4 phases to 3 phases, and that he didn't need to go to Parliament for approval. So E.T. Mensah has rejected and dismissed the claim that the construction of the project were supposed to be done in 4 phases. However, Felix Ofosu-Kwakye has on his Twitter handle posted a parliamentary Hansard, which indicates exactly what E.T. Mensah said
in Parliament.
In Parliament at the time they were procuring the facility or the loan for the construction of the project.
What exactly does it entail?
It was going to build this not at a go.
Okay.
It will be done in phases.
Okay.
So that is the point the NDC is dwelling on.
Okay.
So
that's a contradiction.
That's the contradiction. That the E.T. Mensah himself, at the time in Parliament, said that the project was going to be done in phases.
Okay.
And that it wasn't going to be built at a go. That you get a 200 million, you go and put together 5,000 housing units. So that has been the contradiction between the NDC as a party and E.T. Mensah, who is the former Works and Housing Minister under the NDC administration.
But Felix Ofosu-Kwakye, was he able to show us part of the contract that states that the 200 million was supposed to be used for only 1,005? Or, I mean, to ascertain the truth in the fact that the 200 was not supposed to be used for 5,000 housing units, but rather 1,005, because that's what E.T. Mensah is saying, right?
Yeah,
that the 200 million...
But the 200 million, the basis is that it was meant for the construction of 5,000 housing units.
Okay.
Now, as to how you get to the 5,000, according to NDC, E.T. Mensah decided to use a route that will, at the end of the day, get to the 5,000.
Okay.
And the route is that I'll build 1,500 first. When I'm done, I sell it off. I get the proceeds. I build another 1,500. When I'm done with that one, I sell it off. And at the end of the day, I'll achieve my 5,000.
Okay.
So as to however I get to the 5,000, that is my business.
Okay.
You're giving me 200 million to do 5,000 houses.
So whichever way I arrive at it,
that is it.
Okay,
that's the whole idea.
Okay,
that's the whole idea.
So this is an interesting development that we'll be following for you viewers. But when next is the court revisiting this case?
It's been adjourned to 13th October.
13th October.
2021.
Okay.
So we are in August.
Yeah.
So September.
In the next
October.
2 months.
So in the next 2 months, we'll go to court again to understand what is going to happen. But for now, Collins Dauda has been granted bail. But however, his passport...
Has he submitted the passport?
Yes, in fact, just before I came on air, we were told that he has already submitted his passport to the court register. So the Attorney General assured him and his lawyers that upon request of the passport, they will make it available. That will depend on what he is going to do outside the country.
Okay.
If they think what he's going to do will be in the interest of the nation, because he's a member of
it
parliament
will be released
and working
to him.
for Ghana,
Okay.
it will be released to him to go.
Okay.
But if not, of course, they're going to reject it.
Those
So we'll be
on.
monitoring the process going forward.
Definitely. It's something that we are following with keen eyes, and we'll bring you all the updates in this case. Now, Tamale North MP Alhassan Soyene is accusing Asin Central MP Kennedy Japan of cowardice over his unavailability to appear before Parliament's Privileges Committee. A public hearing of the committee scheduled for today has been called off following what Mr. Soyene says is the inability of the committee to serve the MP with an invitation notice. Mr. Soyene says he has been informed by the committee that Mr. Japan has been traveling out of the country frequently and thus has not been available to receive the notice. Mr. Soyene says the Asin Central MP should be bold to appear and respond to the questions.
That we were going to have our day before the committee today. I had spoken with a couple of members of the committee, and they were all upbeat about today's sitting. So it came to me as a surprise when the committee indicated that they have not been successful at, inviting him yet, due to the fact that he is out of the country. I find it unfortunate. I think that it amounts to an act of cowardice, because we've all known about him now, and given the bravery he showed, one would have thought that he would be eager to make himself available for the committee to serve him, for this matter to be dealt with and decided by the committee and by extension the House. So I find it quite disappointing that his bravery only is exhibited and demonstrated in that comfort zone around Medina.
If he's out of the jurisdiction, he's out of jurisdiction. Why do you see that as a display of an act of cowardice?
First of all, he's elected to represent a constituency and to do business for the people of Ghana. And so I do not find any other business under the circumstance that will be more important outside the jurisdiction of this country than what is at stake. I mean, you're talking about the threat to the life of a citizen, for that matter, a journalist, as a member of parliament, claiming support from, the government, and showing blatant, disregard to establish protocols and code of ethics that is required of us as journalists. One would have thought that he will want this matter resolved, even if he believes that he is right in doing what he is doing. And that should be more important to him than any other business outside the jurisdiction, especially around this time when many countries are on a lockdown.
Do you expect the committee to respond to this in a tough manner, probably subpoenaing him, probably, forcing him to appear before them as a member of Parliament?
Well, I cannot decide for the committee how they should proceed. I am so far very encouraged by, the attitude that I have seen being demonstrated by most of the members as far as this matter is concerned. Many of them have reached out on different occasions to understand what is at stake and to also, be well briefed on what is expected of them as members of the committee. And I think that is encouraging. Again, I have heard, some of them speak, in the media, and it gives me a lot of confidence that the committee will do a thorough job. And I think that it is in the interest of the committee for a thorough job to be done, and for some, clear report to be presented and adopted by the House. Because you recall that he appeared before the committee in the last Parliament. The last Parliament was clear in their recommendations. The recommendation was for him to either be suspended or reprimanded. Unfortunately, the discussion on the report took a different turn which later saw him rendering an apology that was so lame, and you can say he got off the hook so easily. And many people haven't been very pleased with the outcome of that particular case. And so many will be watching, members of the committee and by extension the whole House, to see how we will proceed on this matter. And I believe that it is in the interest of Parliament to protect its own integrity and also to ensure that other members, take a cue from whatever, decision will be taken to be of good behavior.
The House rises tomorrow. What does it mean for the work of the committee?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the House rises tomorrow, but the 8th Parliament ends on January, 7th or 8th, 2025. So the business of Parliament continues. Committees do have the leave of the Speaker to meet even during recess, and once an application is made to the Speaker, I do not see why he should deny the leave for the the Privileges Committee to meet.
We'll be connecting to Gakpo shortly for more, but this is the second time Kennedy Japan has been dragged before the committee. The outspoken MP threatened the life of Love FM's journalist Erastus Asaridonko following the journalist's claims on the coverage of the military brutality that occurred at a Jura in the Ashanti region. The 31-member Privileges Committee, chaired by First Deputy Speaker Joseph Osei-Owusu, received that complaint by the Tamale North MP Alhassan Soyene. It was actually referred to them by the Speaker of Parliament, and he describes it as unfortunate, Kennedy Japan's commentary against the journalist. Now, my colleague Opoku Gakpo, who is in Parliament, is joining me now with more. Gakpo, this is the second time the Asin North MP, the Asin Central MP, is escaping the meeting with the committee. What do other MPs feel about this?
Aisha, let me first bring you up to speed on some other details that I've gathered on this planned meeting for 5 p.m. this evening. I've just double-checked with the chairman of the Privileges Committee, who is also the First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joseph Osei-Owusu, and he confirms to us that that meeting scheduled for 5 p.m. later this evening is actually coming on. It's been a little conflicting. Earlier, we got information from the office of the clerk of the committee indicating that one way or the other, the meeting had actually been called off, and we had the point that he had gotten the communication that because of Mr. Kennedy Japan's unavailability, in order for him to be served with the notice of this meeting, that meeting wasn't coming on. But just a few minutes ago, I double-checked with the chairman of the committee, Joseph Osei-Owusu, who had last week convened a meeting with other members of the committee to decide on the modalities of this particular meeting. And he confirms that at 5 p.m. later today, in the committee rooms 1 and 2, right here in Parliament House, that probe would actually be unfolding. We would be monitoring to bring you those details on that. But it's been a little conflicting what exactly may be contributing to the earlier plans to actually cancel this. You recall earlier, the minority side had boycotted a Zoom meeting that was actually held to decide on the modalities of this meeting, because then they insisted that that meeting had to be in person, and they didn't understand the basis for which the chairman decided to hold that meeting as an online and a non-in-person one. And after a bit of back and forth, the chairman went ahead with that said meeting last week, Tuesday, with MPs mainly on the majority side, meeting that the decision was reached that 5 p.m. later today, the committee would begin with Alhassan Soyene, the Tamale North MP, appearing to provide the necessary evidence to back his claim that the MP had breached his privileges, and then Mr. Japan would then be given the opportunity to then attend. For ABA Fuseni, who is the Sagnerugu MP, who is also a member of the committee, they don't even recognize that that said meeting is coming on later today at 5 p.m. because they were not part of that meeting on Zoom that eventually took that decision. But as I said, we've gotten a confirmation from the chairman that the meeting will come on at 5 p.m. right here in Parliament House. Aisha.
All right, that's great to know. But what other business has the House been conducting?
So you recall that sometime last week, the Minister for Energy laid in Parliament request in order to allow for the Ghana National Corporation, their local subsidiary, other subsidiary, to buy stakes in Aka Energy, their oil wells and their oil blocks right around the Cape 3 Point. And separately, another such request was placed to allow for Exploco to buy another such block somewhere in the wells that's actually into AGM Petroleum. And we know that some civil society groups have actually kicked against this. They brought a petition to the Speaker of Parliament asking that brakes be pulled on that particular transaction. Additionally, there was a request by the Finance Minister for a loan to the tune of $1.65 billion so that then Exploco can buy in that particular well, as in the two different blocks. The Committee on Finance look at the request that the Energy Minister actually brought to the House, as well as the request that the Finance Minister brought to the House. There was a joint meeting of the Mines and Energy as well as the Finance Committees, and they are back with a report. They are making a number of recommendations to allow for this transaction to actually go ahead. This report from the Joint Committee will be laid on the floor of Parliament in the next few hours and then possibly approved. But just to go over brief details of it, the committee, after diligently of finance, agree by consensus, meaning both the majority and the minority side agrees that GNPC Exploco should acquire the 37% equity in the deep water tunnel Cape 3 Point operated by Eka Energy, and as well a 70% equity stake.
My colleague Joseph Opoku Gakpo reporting from Parliament and giving us details of the business that's being conducted in that house. A number of those things, and he's also been updating us on the meeting of the Privileges Committee with the Asin Central MP Kennedy Japan. And of course, he says that meeting will happen at 5 p.m. And it's something that we are monitoring. Joseph Opoku Gakpo himself says he will be bringing us updates on all of that in Parliament. So you need to stay tuned on the JoyNews channel. Let's talk about the COVID-19 pandemic now, because the World Health Organization is calling for a halt on COVID-19 vaccine boosters because of the widening gap between vaccinations between the wealthy and poor countries. This comes at a time where third world countries are in dire need of vaccines amidst the ravaging force of the third wave driven by the Delta variant. Head of WHO, Tedros Adhanom said the World Health Organization cannot accept countries that have already used most of the global supply of vaccines using more.
We need an urgent reversal from the majority of vaccines going to high-income countries to the majority going to low-income countries. Accordingly, WHO is calling for a moratorium on boosters until at least the end of September to enable at least 10% of the population of every country to be vaccinated. I understand the concern of all governments to protect their people from the Delta variant. But we cannot and we should not accept countries that have already used most of the global supply of vaccines using even more of it, while the world's most vulnerable people remain unprotected.
So what are the implications of this move by the Western world on vaccine procurement? Joining me via Zoom is Dr. Amwakohene. He's with the ICU unit in NCHN Network, Connecticut. Doc, I'm grateful for your time. Should the third world countries be concerned about this development?
Aisha, thanks for having me. This is a major concern. I think it's clear, listening to the head of the WHO, that the third world or developing countries are now going through what we call some sort of scarcity in finding vaccines to vaccinate their people. And in a developing country, I am very concerned and very worried about getting vaccines. The reason is very simple. The West they've realized that the way they can get back to their lives, the way they can protect their people, the way they can protect their economies is ensuring that everyone or most people are vaccinated. So not only did they take the steps in investing in these vaccines, they've now gone ahead and made purchases in ensuring that people who need boosters or third dose or shot of the vaccine are able to get it. What that means is that globally, there is going to be a shortage in all these developing countries. And that is a major concern right now. Just this week, we heard what the head of the WHO said. These countries, the United States is thinking about it, France, UK, Germany, and Israel actually started vaccinating people or giving people the booster dose last week. These countries are not going to stop. Germany, for example, said they are going to go ahead despite what the head of the WHO has said. They're going to still go ahead in September next month and vaccinate their people with a third dose or booster dose. However, they will be giving some vaccines through COVAX and through bilateral relations. It's important to know that means that these developing countries are at the mercy of these countries who are willing to donate some vaccines. And nobody knows when you're going to get the vaccines. In a situation where vaccines, when they are donated, they come from when the country is ready to donate. And sometimes they get to Ghana, they get to these African countries or poor countries with a closed expiration date. And that means that these vaccines become irrelevant because you cannot vaccinate people enough. So there are major concerns here.
Expecting delivery of some vaccines by the end of the month. I mean, per this development, do you foresee any challenge in the wake of this phenomenon?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the initial part of your question.
All right, so I'm saying that Ghana is expecting delivery of vaccines by the end of this month, which is August. Do you foresee challenges in the wake of this phenomenon?
I really do. I think, in all honesty, we've been told that vaccines will be coming to Ghana, and so is many African countries expecting vaccines. It's clear what happened in India caused a major halt in the delivery of vaccines when basically India, had the outbreak of the Delta variant. Now that we're going to get boosters across the globe, mainly within these developed countries, one can absolutely assume that delivery of vaccines to developing countries like Ghana is going to be a problem. The truth is, Ghana is potentially going to get some vaccines, hopefully the end of the month. But what I can tell you is the number of vaccines they need may not be what they expect. And it's clear because when these vaccines are made, not only Ghana is looking for them, many countries are also expected to get some. So if you're a country like Ghana, you have to step back and ask yourself, you are going through a third wave. Most of your population is being infected right now. Your hospitals are getting choked, specifically your ICUs. And the disease burden is becoming overwhelming if you're not at that point. You have to ask yourself, do you rely solely on the vaccine that will be coming sort of in smaller doses or smaller amounts? Or you take that initiative and you invest by ensuring that you can acquire vaccines, at least to vaccinate the heavily populated areas that is now being dealt heavily with the spread of these viruses, like Kumasi or the Ashanti region or Accra or the other parts of Ghana that really need vaccinations to ensure that you put a dent in the spread of this virus.
So this vaccine boosters, is it really necessary? Because doctors like your time have told us that when we take our 2 jabs and we eat well and observe the protocols, we're good to go. I mean, why is it necessary for people to go for boosters?
Any medical doctor will tell you your immunity, once you get an infection or a vaccine, your body develops immunity or protection against that infection in the future. when you take vaccine, you develop that immunity in the fact that if you were to get sort of your body were to get infected again, you'll be able to overcome it. You will not be severely ill or in the ICU or die from it. Now, that immunity that you develop after getting your 2 shots, in the case of, say, AstraZeneca or Moderna or Pfizer, that immunity wanes over time. It decreases over time. And so in patients or people who are what we say immunocompromised, have lung disease, heart problem, kidney problems, or older people, that immunity goes down quite quickly compared to younger people. So given the severity of COVID-19 and the new variants that are coming, it is highly recommended that people get their 3rd dose, especially people who are immunocompromised or older. For example, in Israel, people at the age of 60 and above are getting the boosters as we speak. Germany is going to start from the age of 50, and they're going to give priority to the ages of 70 and above. The UK is considering similar situation as well. So boosters are important. And in fact, there are other vaccines that patients get after the age of 55, 60 and above. And so boosters are not, they are known, they are done. And given the spread of this pandemic, given the different mutations that are coming up, it's important that you ensure the most vulnerable within your country or your community is protected against this virus.
Now, as a country, I'm talking about Ghana in terms of vaccine procurement. With your experience in this area, if you are to advise government on vaccine procurement, what would that be? Dr. Great.
My recommendation to government will be very clear. And I'll point out a few things to them. And I'll tell them, let me give you some statistical data. Just within a week, there's about 43% increase in the death of COVID-19 patients in Africa. 80% in 1 month. Tunisia right now is going through a 4th wave, the only African country going through a 4th wave. When you look at countries like basically Zambia, they've closed down schools, right? Kenya has had curfews. So what I would share with government is that these are real situations that have to be dealt with from many fronts. It's great that they're looking for vaccines through COVAX, through the African Union, but it's important to recognize that to be able to put a dent in the spread of this virus in Ghana, which is experiencing a 3rd wave in most parts of the country or parts of the country, government must increase their efforts in ensuring that they can acquire vaccines through 3rd parties that can actually deliver vaccines to them, however small it may be. And that will help to decrease the dependence on vaccines through the African Union or COVAX, which may not be coming at the rate or the doses that Ghana needs to be able to stay ahead of this deadly pandemic. Because the worst case scenario may come or happen where the government may be forced to shut down again. And the ramifications of patients losing their lives and people dying and the economic effect, it's clear for everyone to see. So that's what I recommend government does, is look for alternatives in really being able to get some amount of vaccine to ensure that you vaccinate your people now rather than relying on what will be coming through the African Union.
Dr. Samuel Amoakohene, I'm grateful this afternoon that he joined us. He's the COVID ICU team leader with NCH and Network in Connecticut. It's a good time to take a break on the Pulse. There's more on my return. Welcome back to the Pulse. You can join the conversation and tweet at us of the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is at the Nana Aisha. Let's have a conversation because latest data from the Police Motor Traffic and Transport Department suggests that as many as 256 people died from road crashes just in the month of July 2021 alone. It brings to 1,706 the number of people who have been killed through road accidents since the beginning of this year. This represents a 24.43% rise as against the same time last year, where 1,371 people got killed. The Ashanti region tops with the most mortalities, with Northeast recording the least. The Ghana Police Motor Traffic and Transport Department says the country must, as a matter of urgency, consider dualization of the major highways? Well, this afternoon we focus on this subject because road crashes won't just go away. It's beginning to sound more like a broken record. We are back here again at the figures. What will it take to stem the threat? Dr. William Aka is a transport consultant and senior research scientist at the Building and Road Research Institute. Doc, I'm grateful for your time this afternoon. Kindly unmute for me, Doc.
Good afternoon. Thank you
Doc,
for having me on your program.
What will it take to stem the tide?
It's a multifaceted approach. We need to deal with issues concerning the vehicle. We also have to deal with issues on road user behavior. We also have to deal with issues on the road and its environment itself. And then the last one I want to mention is our post-crash response time. All these factors are very important. So we need to coordinate these factors very well in order to make sure that road traffic crashes are reduced in this country.
What's the role of the individual and what's the role of government or the security agencies? I'm talking about the MTTD. What's their role in ensuring that this happens?
Again, road safety is a multi-sectorial sector, so it requires several sectors. The National Road Safety Authority is supposed to coordinate the activities of all the road safety programs in the country. The police, as you mentioned, are to ensure enforcement of speed limits, enforcement of helmets, enforcement of alcohol limits. All these are supposed to be enforced by the police. And we also have the road agencies under the Ministry of Roads and Highways, which are supposed to make sure that all the roads are put in the right shape. They are locations where accidents are frequent, are dealt with. All the measures we need to put in place to make sure that road traffic crashes are reduced, are dealt with, are supposed to be done by the agencies. Of course, we also have the Ghana Health Service to deal with emergency cases. So it's a multi-sector approach. Several sectors are involved here to make sure that we deal with the issue of road safety.
The concern about the police, and I'm coming back to the Motor Traffic and Transport Authority, the fact that they sometimes make it very simple for people who disobey road regulations, people who drive rickety vehicles, and most of the commercial vehicles are at fault when it comes to this. These concerns have been raised over the years, and I must say that we're still there. What will it take to end this?
Well, enforcement is very, very important. As you rightly mentioned, road user behavior constitutes about 80% of all road traffic crashes in this country. And what we need to deal with this road user behavior is enforcement. So we need the police to be strict, ensure that where drivers need to be punished, we punish them instead of just settling matters on the roadside. So we need to make sure that the police are able to enforce our laws. Because if you look at what we have in our law, we have all the laws, but the enforcement part is what is missing. So we need the police to enforce the law. I mentioned issues with speeding, for instance. The police will need to enforce speeding. Speed limits needs to be obeyed. You mentioned issues with the vehicles, right? The driver and vehicle licensing authority, they need to make sure that only vehicles which are roadworthy are on our road. And the police is the institution which is supposed to enforce this. If they fail us, they fail everybody. If you should drive well on the roads, you realize that some vehicles are not roadworthy. Why are they on the road? They are not supposed to be there. Drivers, motor riders riding without helmets. Why are they on the road without being arrested? We have several of these risk factors which we need to control. So major responsibility will rest on the police because the road user behavior, we need to control them. And if we are to continue doing things in this way, there is no way the number of road traffic crashes we are having will reduce. We need to enforce our laws.
Definitely, and as we embark on this campaign for the laws to be enforced, we are also all getting to admit that dualization of major roads, highways, will also help a great deal. But is this whole thing feasible, and how long will it take for us as a country to get here?
Okay, so this issue of dualization has been discussed in the sector of road safety over the years. What happens is that if you should take two vehicles traveling at say 100 kilometers per hour with just a thin line separating them, it doesn't make safety sense because with the slightest of opportunity, the other vehicle can move to the other lane and it will result into a head-on collision. So we need to dualize our major roads. We know road construction is very expensive. But for the major routes, for instance, Accra, Kumasi, Accra, Cape Coast, we need to dualize them. If we are able to do this dualization, it means that we reduce a high percentage of road traffic crashes, for instance, head-on collisions. If you dualize the route, it means you've eliminated head-on collisions. Because when you are traveling from Accra to Kumasi, you follow vehicles for a very long time. And sometimes these drivers, they get agitated and with the slightest opportunity, they want to overtake. And when they make some of these maneuvers, it results in head-on collision. So yes, we need to dualize it. Road safety, road construction is expensive, but the cost of the lives we are losing as a result of head-on collisions on a major road is equally expensive, maybe more expensive than what the road will cost. So there is the need for us. No, it's not possible to dualize all routes in the country. That is not possible. But the major routes, there is an urgent need for us to dualize it to reduce some of these crashes which are occurring on our road.
Dr. Aka, hold on there for me because my colleague Maxwell Agbagba has been putting together a piece, and he says the Accra Motorway has now been caught up in the urban sprawl with settlements on both sides of the road. These settlements have come with countless unapproved crossings where many people are being killed. For our Drive Safe campaign, Maxwell Agbagba has been interacting with both drivers and pedestrians who fear more people will die if nothing is done about the situation.
It is a hot afternoon and I'm on the Klagon section of the Motorway. About 100 meters away from where I'm standing is a young female student. She's carrying what is popularly called the Ghana Must Go bag. She has been standing there for the past 10 minutes. Like many others, she's waiting until a safer time to cross. The young lady I later got to know as Petikote, a 16-year-old second-year SHS student. Betty's friend Vanessa, who was also a student, died on this section of the motorway. She was on her way to school. Thoughts of that crash, she tells me, makes her very nervous whenever she comes across the highway.
It's very dangerous because the cars are moving very fast and none are ready to allow us cross. So I think if there's an overhead here, it will help a lot because I was struggling a lot to cross the road. It's very dangerous. I lost my friend just last year. She was also going to school like me. Yes, and then she decided to use this place and I can't knock her down.
Well, you need a cocktail of guts and courage to be able to cross this busy section of the motorway here at Klagon. majority of the residents I've been speaking to, they tell me about the daily risk of crossing the motorway here at this section. Many of the vehicles are speeding beyond 100 kilometers per hour.
So that's 12 hours.
I've met another young lady, Beauty Doe. She sells biscuits and drinks at the Klagon lorry station. The woman who used to sell very close to her was one Hajia. Hajia used to sell cola nuts at the station. She was killed some months ago when she tried to cross the motorway to her home.
It was Saturday. We are also from Monday to Saturday. So Saturday, we are all here from Monday to Saturday. So Saturday when she came, we were all here, we chat, we play, we do things, and we were like, oh, today you look beautiful, like a joke. So normally she closed around 5 to 6 that way, and she left. But as for me, I closed around 8. So the next day, Sunday, I was in the house and they called me. The woman had an accident on the motorway. I said, oh, what happened? And they said, she's crossing and can't make it. We are, a lot of life have been lost on this road. A lot.
A lot of communities have sprung up very close to the sides of the motorway. That wasn't the case decades ago when it was constructed. Here in this Klagon community, which lies very close to the motorway, we've been here for the past 4 hours, and many of the residents we've been interacting with here seem to know someone who was knocked down and killed by a car whilst crossing the motorway.
Thankfully, Dr. Aka is still here with me. Doc, you've seen it for yourself. The Road Safety Commission has been doing a lot to help reduce the crashes on our roads. What do you recommend they do differently to achieve more results?
Okay, so I want to comment on the video we just watched. We are saying it's a motorway. But looking at the characteristics, what is happening there, that road cannot be classified as a motorway. Because on a motorway, accesses to the road are controlled. You can't have people crossing at any point on a motorway. This will not happen anywhere in a country. So that road doesn't qualify as a motorway, right? So for us to be able to reduce the number of crashes, we need to get right. Motorways, accesses to motorways are controlled. People don't get to cross anyhow. There is no jaywalking. People cross at designated locations. So here we need responsible road user behavior, right? We need responsible road users. So that is on the part of the road users. Road users need to be responsible, and road users here include drivers, right, who are overspeeding, going beyond the speed limit, who are doing whatever, jumping off red lights, not putting on their seatbelt. We need to get responsible road users. Again, we need to get safer vehicles, right? The Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority would have to make sure that only vehicles which are roadworthy are on our roads. And then the road agencies needs to put in simple measures. So on the motorway, for instance, where people are crossing anyhow, what can we do to prevent them from crossing anyhow? If we need to put in foot brake, let's put the foot brake and enforce the law. Make sure that the pedestrians use their foot brake and not cross anyhow, which will put their life at risk. So very, very important. And then there is also the issue of our post-crash response system, right? Even if the crash happens, what can we do to make sure that the number of people who die are reduced? The Ghana Ambulance Service, we need to resource them. They need to be able to get to the crash scene within the minimum time so that we'll be able to reduce some of these crashes. The road agencies, some simple measures. We know road construction is very, very expensive, but when they do the road construction, they need to put in simple measures which will make sure that the accidents are reduced. For example, street lighting, very, very important, because when there is darkness, sometimes pedestrians perceive drivers have seen them. The drivers, most of them, don't see them, and they end up knocking down pedestrians. So simple things like street lighting, road markings, very, very important. We need to put them in place. And locations where we need to calm down traffic, we need to do this to ensure that we reduce the number of fatalities on our roads.
Now, residents are calling for footbridges, and of course, recently we've seen some communities with footbridges who never used it, rather wanted to cross the road themselves. Do you think this is actually the solution?
Yes, what we need to do is to enforce the law, right? Jaywalking under the Road Traffic Act is illegal. So if people are jaywalking, we need to apply our laws. Let the police get to work, arrest these people, send them to court. Because if you have vehicles traveling on the motorway, for instance, 100 kilometers per hour, you miss them with a pedestrian. That is a surest way to get people killed. This will not happen, right? You don't need to miss people with vehicles traveling at 100 kilometers per hour, for instance. You need to segregate them. And this you can only do by using pedestrian footbridge for them, or maybe an underground pass. This is the only solution. People don't need to have accesses to motorways, highways, major highways. We need to control them. Else, what we will need to do is to have speed humps on our major highways, which also defeat the purpose of the road being a highway where you must or you can travel at very high speeds in order to get to your destination. So we need to enforce our laws, make sure that the laws are obeyed, prosecute people, and then our roads will be safe.
Now, thankfully, Director of Research, Planning and Programs at the National Road Safety Authority, David Osafo-Adontain, has joined via Zoom. I'm grateful for your time. Has this situation come to your attention? What is the National Road Safety Authority's assessment of the danger? Hello, Mr. Adontain. If you can hear me on the pulse, I'm asking what's your own assessment of the danger if this particular issue about the motorway has come to your attention.
Well, if you can hear me, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. Good afternoon. And indeed, the motorway is a problem that we know very well. It's very close to us. We are very much aware of the dangers associated with the use of the motorway. You will agree with me that the motorway itself has lost its credibility in terms of the function of serving as a motorway, an expressway. The intention of developing the motorway is currently defeated because if you look at the way the land use and how people are encroaching in terms of putting up structures very close to the motorway, and also the fact that now the people are crossing the road at various points. Commercial vehicles are stopping for passengers to board the vehicles and alight. I think that it's become a situation that we will have to look at it in a broader term. It is not safe to use the motorway currently. The road itself, if you look at the surface, has also suffered some deterioration. And in recent times, there was not even a week that you wouldn't hear of a crash here and there. Beyond that, the use of the motorway by motorists in particular is also very, very, very serious for us to be looking at because they speed beyond limits. The road at the moment and the environment would not allow people to go the kind of speeds that they are going. It is very difficult also for the police to go and enforce any regulation on the motorway. And so it turned out to be a danger zone for as far as we are concerned. It is our wish that the motorway will be transformed from its current situation to the kind of motorway that we expect. I know the Ministry of Roads and Highways is developing the road in terms of design. Very soon, we'll see some changes within the corridor, but we are not there yet. But as we are not there, what we do as an authority is continue to engage motorists on that particular stretch, ensuring that they don't go beyond the stipulated speed limit. On the motorway, by law, we are not supposed to go more than 100 kilometers per hour. Indeed, if you look at it, you can find almost none of them complying with the rules and regulations on the use of the motorway. So it's become a problem for all of us, and not only for the National Road Safety Authority, I think for the road agency itself, and then for all of us as Ghanaians. Running on that particular stretch between Accra and Kumasi, Accra and Tamale, using especially the traffic mix, where now truck traffic is so huge, loading from the Tamale Harbour, crossing all the way into Accra to the hinterlands. And I think that is a worry.
Now, Ms. Adonting, there are many who attribute this to slums that is springing up on the motorway. What's the solution?
Well, I think that at first we suggested to the Minister of Roads and Highways to see if we could fence the entire stretch, because it's a practice that is also observed by other countries across the world, where they have fenced the right of way from the beginning to end, in which case they have protected it in a manner that nobody could move from the other side into the arena of the motorway. I think that is a very difficult situation now, because we have allowed it. We have allowed all encroachers, allowed the slums to develop. We have allowed even, what do you call it, the people, these estate developers to have also come very close. So now controlling it will be a very difficult task. I think that we would have to, in the near future, redevelop the motorway. Redeveloping means that we will perhaps increase the carriageway, as it is 2-lane in and 2-lane out. The plan of the Ministry of Roads and Highways is to increase it to 3 or more. And then we also introduce interchanges. Once you introduce the interchanges, it will give access to people who are developing to their various properties, a means of entering their properties without any reference to motorists on the motorway. I think that the development is ongoing. We'll have to interrogate the plan and the design to see if it satisfies all of us. But otherwise, as it is now, if we leave it the way it is, I think it won't be better for any of us.
Doctor,
we will engage the Ministry of Roads and Highways and perhaps bring forth our ideas and concept and see how it can be properly aligned into our road safety management plan.
Mr. Adonting, I know that the National Road Safety Authority has been embarking on a number of activities to ensure that there is a reduction in the number of accidents on our roads. What would you do differently as we're seeing this kind of development?
Yes, you know that the mandate given to the National Road Safety Authority doesn't go beyond education and then regulating standards. We cannot fix roads. We can also not develop roads or construct roads.
But what's your collaboration with all these agencies that play a role in ensuring the...
What we have done is that we have the data and the statistics as far as using the road is concerned and road safety crashes and deaths are concerned. We have forwarded all this information to the Ministry of Roads and Highways, and the engineers have taken on board the problems associated with the use of the road as regards pedestrians and then the mix of traffic. Now, we are also helping in the way of, there is this first aid post. If you look at the entry into the motorway from the Accra end, we are working with the Ghana Red Cross Society to ensure that we develop that particular spot, introduce the first aid post operations with ambulances. We're not saying the crashes should happen, but when it happens, we should be very quick in responding to the issues. So responding centers are being developed on the stretch. Now, we are also scaling up our education. To be honest with you, our campaigns have factored in the motorway. We periodically go there, our outreach teams, to station at the toll booth to engage the drivers who use the motorway. I think that we have gotten to a point that the police would come in to support our educational programs with the kind of automation cameras that they are bringing on board, which means that the police cannot do that manually. If they bring these cameras to support the education we're doing, then whoever runs on the motorway beyond the 100 kilometers speed limit that we're talking about will now be identified with a camera and then will be apprehended by the police and prosecuted accordingly. It is a matter of education and enforcement. And I believe that very soon as the police are getting closer to installing the cameras on the motorway, it's one of the biggest achievements that all of us are going to enjoy in the coming days.
Mr. David Osafo saying thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Let me thank you, Dr. William Aka, who also suggested that that motorway needs to be re-looked at, and Adonting also hammered on that one. I'm grateful for your time. Dr. William Aka is a transport consultant. From the road, let's make a stop at the presidency event to mark the 29th anniversary of the establishment of the new patriotic party. The president said the country must stay the course to defeat the challenges facing her. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who is due to step down as president in January 2025, expressed optimism he will be successful, or he'll be succeeded by an NPP candidate. He has also been swearing in the special prosecutor. We'll bring you that, but let's listen to the president first.
Yesterday, the nation celebrated the beginning of its fight for freedom that was lit on the 4th of August in Salt Pond, 1947. By one of those coincidences that perhaps have divine blessing, today we're celebrating the 29th anniversary of the new patriotic party. The party that has dedicated itself to advancing the ideals and values that were established on that day, the 4th of August, 1947. The political tradition that was born on that day has gone through a lot of challenges, a lot of turbulence, a lot of difficulties, but has consistently emerged stronger and stronger. So today, the challenges that confront our country, the difficulties that we have been plunged into by the COVID, is going to give us the opportunity to grow stronger and stronger. And that strength, that strengthening of our party, its organs, is going to mean one thing, and I'm very, very confident of it, that on the 7th of December, 2024, the new MPP presidential candidate is going to win the election of 2024. So our objective, our responsibility is to do whatever it is necessary to make sure that that victory is forthcoming. We have to continue our way forward in Ghana. We cannot accept the backsliding that takes place every now and then. It hasn't benefited.
General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, John Boydu, says the NPP holds the record as a champion of social intervention programs in the country. Though a firm believer of property-owning democracy, the party, according to John Boydu, has introduced more human-centered policies than its main rival, the NDC. At a media event to celebrate 29 years of existence as a political party, Mr. Boydu said Ghana is better off under the NPP, warning a change in government in 2024 will slip the country back into incompetence.
NPP, despite its center-right ideology, has implemented more social intervention programs than any other political party in the history of this country. Despite the fact that we are a center-right political party, because we care for the masses, we care for the poor, there's no party in this country that has implemented more social intervention programs than the New Patriotic Party. Kufuor established the National Health Insurance and provided free maternal health care. He introduced the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty for indigent families and provided a capitation grant and the Ghana School Feeding Program. He undertook pension reforms, instilling sanity and bringing relief to retirees. He also initiated cocoa mass spraying, creating new jobs, higher yields, and increased incomes in the cocoa sector. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has also continued with innovative social interventions. One of his greatest legacies is free senior high school education. This is set to provide a literate society which will ensure skills and technical innovation to feed the industrialization drive of our government. We have also delivered one constituency, one ambulance program, a drone service for delivery of medical supplies. This is the first time, and our drone service here is one of the best in Africa, if not in the world. We quickly restored teacher training allowances that was scrapped by our predecessors. We also restored nursing training allowances. We introduced allowances for Arabic and Islamic instructors under the National Volunteer Service Program, and the absorption of examination registration fees for BEC and WASI candidates. He also brought NAPCO, which employed over 100,000 graduates. You remember that before we came, before 2017, we were under the strict aprons of the IMF. As part of the condition, employment had been freezed. Because of the innovative policies of our government, we were able to get out of the aprons of the IMF, and by this, we were able to introduce NAPCO, which employed over 100,000 of our youthful people, or youthful Ghanaians of our country. Now, NAPCO employees are being absorbed into permanent jobs in the public sector. The Zongo Development Fund that was established is also expected to transform the lives of many youth through skill training as well as modern sports facilities in selected communities.
So congratulations is in order, but let's break it down for you. Political scientist Dr. Akwesi Amache Boateng, he joins me via Zoom for this conversation. Dr. Amache, I'm grateful for your time. What's your own assessment of the NPP as a party? One that is a champion of social interventions?
Thanks for the opportunity, and let me say good evening to your viewers and listeners. Generally speaking, the NPP and of course the political parties in Ghana's Fourth Republic are to be congratulated, actually. They have done well. They have provided the wheels on which Ghana's democracy, and for that matter, the Ghanaian polity, the Fourth Republic of Ghana, has been carried. So far, so good. We set off on the 7th of 2003, and so far Ghana has made progress generally. But talking about progress and what the NPP, is to be commended for, I look at two angles: one, political development, and two, economic development. In the areas of political development, yes, the party has done quite well. There are some challenges here. He's talking of various social interventions that Ghanaians are enjoying. Several of them, the NHIS, excellent policy, providing crucial medical care to the needy, especially when one falls sick suddenly. It's an excellent policy. So far, it appears to be, doing well. It has encountered challenges, but critically, given the fact that the two political parties have embraced it, and the NDC has come into office, stayed with the same policy for a while, and the MPP has come back, it's received acceptance from, Ghanaians generally. And so, yes, the MPP is to be credited for that. It is also to be credited with several other social interventions. But my problem with these credits, come against a major challenge because they are all in the areas of consumption. Generally, they are all in the areas of consumption, and some of them, if we go into them critically, will appear to be having challenges in the days to come. A challenge with their sustainability. Actually, when a nation, prides itself with consumption, but then has challenges generating significant resources, growing the economy to generate, funds internally to support these, then it becomes problematic. But besides that, the MPP also, I mentioned the sustainability of democratic governance in the Fourth Republic. The NDC has cooperated very well with the MPP in government, whether in opposition or in government. So in government and whether in opposition, that conflict and cooperation, between the two parties also has worked well to sustain our democracy. They've also formulated and articulated policy alternatives, especially when they are in the opposition. Yes, but then there are other challenges that one will want to also look at. And I think on this day that they are celebrating, the party's 29th anniversary, then the attention, could be drawn to some of the following issues. Generally, they border critically on internal democracy, transparency, and accountability. The party has, had to address itself to a major challenge. It's got to do with one, filling spots in the party structure, the party's various offices, and then two, and then first at the national and then regional levels, and then two, the issue of parliamentary candidates, and occasionally some individuals appearing to, have the support of officialdom. These really affect matters related to the internal democracy in the party, issues of transparency.
Dr. Boateng, let's face the reality and look at policies churning out by the NPP government anytime they're in power. For the past 29 years, I'm talking about education, health, economy, infrastructure, agric. How would you describe the NPP's formulation of policies in these areas versus its implementation?
Let's take education. Critically, the major change in policy in the area of education, has come out of the current policy being implemented. Free SHS. There was also an attempt to affect the way the universities are governed, and that document, didn't come off properly. It's not only the university community that had issues with it. Civil society organizations saw it as a terrible document, and so I think it's been shelved. Going back to this free SHS policy, looking at it generally, any policy that seeks to provide education to the rank and file, majority of Ghanaians, if not everybody, should be lauded on the grounds that it's a major attempt at building Ghana's technical capacity. And it's on the basis of this that Ghana can, proceed to embark on a drive to generate, wealth for the economy. When you train your manpower needs, train them very well, equip them with relevant skills, then the nation's capacity is enhanced, to enable it to perform in other areas. But then the policy has got to be a realistic one. I call it a major consumption drive, because where is the money to support such a policy? And generally, why did we have to start at the senior high school level? I was thinking that, we have teething challenges at the primary and JHS level around the country, in the villages, in the hinterlands, so many areas that even don't have roads, potable water, health post. So many areas, the schools there terribly dilapidated, and the environment such that no teacher will want to be posted there. So when you want to really affect your system of education, one will want to believe that you start it from the foundation. So that critical area is neglected. We decided to handle it halfway. And so we have a situation where many of the students in the senior high school are not ready to pursue senior high school education. They are simply not ready. They can't read. You read things out to them, they don't understand. They can't express themselves in basic English. They are simply not ready. So I think that policy should have really been subjected to a national sort of conversation, given its fundamental nature and the fact that it is the taxpayers' money that is going into it. Besides that, you need to examine Ghana's economy, the size of the economy, our revenue generation capacity, before you decide to spend a sizable amount of the same revenue generated at the end of the year in a particular field. And I think we didn't do that. We didn't do that. So that policy, generally speaking, a laudable one, but the way it was formulated, I think we didn't get the policy right. We started it at a wrong level. I think we should have gone to the fundamentals, should have gone to the primary schools, should have gone to the JHS before moving up. And two, given the size of our economy, we are not ready to finance education freely the way this one has been rolled out. We are not ready. Countries that are fabulously rich don't do that. They establish an accountability relationship between the state and society. They make available loan facilities, and students take them knowing very well that when they begin to work in future, they will repay this money back. That is the issue of accountability relationship between state and society. This one did not do that. It's giving out money that virtually it hasn't got. The policy is problematic. Its implementation is another terrible thing. In its formulation, the key agency that will be running the policy, GES, definitely was left out. In its implementation, you have a high-handed approach, a top-down, the top heavily descending on officers who are the core implementers of this policy. You wonder whether at any material moment in time they go down to do an evaluation. And have they created an environment to enable the implementers share their real experiences with them? I don't think these are there. So
definitely.
Implementation too is as it is. If you look at it from the angle of development administration, it's a terrible thing because the two, politics and administration, will have to work hand in hand. That is not what is happening now. We don't have thinking and doing going hand in hand.
Dr. Kwesi Amache-Boateng, thank you so much this afternoon for joining the conversation. I'm grateful that you joined us. Now we can go to the presidency, where the special prosecutor says, I will suppress and repress corruption. And that's the firm assurance that he is giving Mr. Kissie Jabing. He is formally taking office today. The 43-year-old was sworn into office to begin a 7-year mandate today. The office became vacant last year following the resignation of Martin Amidu, who accused the president of political interference. 3 oaths of allegiance, office and secrecy administered by President Akufo-Addo sealed the move. Mr. Jabing, in his acceptance speech, said the country is currently facing 2 pandemics that needs urgent attention. He assures he will work to make corruption a high-risk venture.
Mr. President, I deem it a great honor that I have been given this opportunity to serve my nation in this high office. And I express my gratitude, the confidence you have reposed in me. Mr. President, we are confronted by 2 pandemics. One is a health crisis, and its outlook is very macabre. The other is not a health crisis, but it is also a pandemic, which is corruption itself and corruption-related activities. The zeal with which your administration has approached the fight in respect of the health crisis, I also see in respect of the other pandemic, which is corruption. And as I come into this office, I pledge to the people of Ghana, as I said exactly 2 weeks ago, that I'm going to work assiduously with deliberation to suppress and repress corruption.
President Akufo-Addo says despite the unfortunate event that led to the exit of Martin Amidu as special prosecutor, he does not regret appointing him, describing him, Kissie Jabing, as highly qualified. The president charged him to fight corruption independently.
The genuineness of that commitment to create an independent, non-partisan body with the relevant professional capability to lead the fight and hold public officials, past and present, accountable for their stewardship of public finances, was made manifest in the appointment of a very senior figure from the opposite side of the political divide to establish and head this very significant office. The appointment, as you will recall, was met with stiff opposition by some members from both sides of the aisle. In spite of the unfortunate events that led to the departure of the first occupant of the office, I do not regret making that appointment. On my part as President of the Republic, I ensured that the office was adequately resourced to enable it to carry out its mandate.
And as I wrap up the pulse this afternoon, it's been super exciting having this conversation with you. Enjoy the rest of our programs.